Welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Republican Roundtable. I'm your host, Scott Graham, and today we have three candidates running for offices here in Bloomington. One of the big things we want to talk about is how local folks can be involved in the local elections that we all participated in. It's important to engage at a local level where your voices can be heard. And in light of that, we have three individuals that have chosen to bring their voices to be heard. We have a mayoral candidate, David Clark, and we have two individuals running for the at-large councilperson's position. We have Bruce Colton and Jonathan Minks. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So I'd like to have you tell us a little bit about who you are and a little history of your time here in Bloomington. David?
Thank you so much. My time in Bloomington has been 20 years now. Moved here in 2003 from Minneapolis with my family. I'd grown up overseas and my family was all from this area, and we moved back here, and I've been in Bloomington since that time. For the first 17 years I've been in Bloomington, I was really unaware of what was happening on a local level. I paid more attention to national politics and state level politics, but really had no idea what was going on at the city level. And it was only when things were happening here, not only to myself that I started noticing, but I started talking to friends from other parts of town that were noticing common threads in the way the city was governing itself. And so I actually helped to start a watchdog group in order to inform residents about what was happening at the city council and at the school board. So that was my first foray into city politics.
The city politics. Well, good. And we'll get to the issues here just shortly. I'm looking forward to that. Bruce, tell us a little bit about your time here in Bloomington.
Well, I've lived here 28 years and pretty much oblivious to what was going on around me in Bloomington. But I will tell you this, that 28 years ago, moving in here, clean neighborhoods, green spaces, everything I liked, large yards especially, and taxes that were inconsequential. Well, the taxes have gone from inconsequential to holy cow. And that's probably the first wake-up call. Then watching the city council, I see the city council moving farther and farther away from the people's voice and actually sort of segregating the people's voice, marching to their own drum. That raised another, note to me. And then third, I just see a lot of the quality of life that I remember being changed. And I like the Bloomington I moved into, that I invested in. If I wanted to move downtown Minneapolis or St. Paul, I could have chosen there. I didn't. I chose Bloomington. I want it to stay the way it is. I want to give Bloomington a better future, and I want to give Bloomington's children a better future.
Thank you. Yeah. And Jonathan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a born and raised native here. I've spent 50 years here in Bloomington. After high school, I joined the Minnesota Army National Guard and became in the military police division. And then I was in corporate America for several years and started my own business. In 2011, I have 2 bicycle shops, and I currently serve on the Bloomington Park and Rec's Board of Commissions. And I just wanted to get more involved in my community and serve again.
Well, thank you. Great, a little introduction. Now I'd like to hear from you. What motivated you to step forward? Is there something in particular that stood out for you that said, I need to get involved? David, why don't you tell us what you think?
Well, like I said, I've been watching what's going on at the city level for several years, and I noticed that it wasn't just isolated instances, that we really have a governance problem here in Bloomington. So I decided to run for city council 2 years ago, and did not make it because of the ranked choice voting system, but that kept me plugged into the issues. I was very familiar with what was happening here in Bloomington. After the legislative session this spring, which I think we all are familiar with how things went from bad to worse at the state level, I really saw that Bloomington was following that same pathway. In fact, a lot of the bad ideas at the state level came from Bloomington with the current city council and the mayor. So I decided it's time for me to step up. And so with the support of my family and a lot of different people that I talked to, I decided to run. It was time to run and to step up and to serve my community this way.
Okay, excellent. And Jonathan, what motivated you to step forward?
Well, as a small business owner, I think running the city is like a business. And I think in our city, we spend and spend and spend. And I think we need to have a little fiscal responsibility and some accountability on where we spend our money and how we spend our money. I've seen projects that have blown up, and half of the funding goes to an outside firm to manage that because the city is too busy or not well staffed to run those projects. So we need to take those projects back into the city where we're paying staff and not outsource those projects to outside firms to be more profitable and make our money stretch as far as we can.
Great, thank you. Bruce, tell us about yourself here.
I have been a blabbermouth all my life. I talk a great game, and I always stayed up on the issues, but primarily at the national level. And I slowly came to realize that it starts down where I live, and I saw things that I didn't really like. I think that I said, instead of just talking about it, maybe I got to do something. And I'm in my, let's call them autumn years. And I just felt that I should do something before it's too late. And I had the energy and I had the desire to, as I say, try to give the kids of Bloomington a better future. Try to do the things that I see going wrong on the national level and at the state level. Try to make it right in Bloomington. So things like happened this last legislative session at the national or at the state level don't bubble up from Bloomington. That we set an example. Make this a good government, a government that listens to the people. That's what it's all about, is just stepping up and making people that have businesses like Jonathan, make them happy in Bloomington. Give our kids a good life. Give our kids a future, good jobs. Understand how they can become employed and get good jobs. I'll stop there. I got lots I could say.
Great. Well, thank you. Now, on the next election, we have a ballot initiative that includes three parts of that. And I'd like you to speak on what your thoughts are about that, because we are looking at a potential additional 0.05% sales tax increase, which can last for 20 years. So what do you think about this ballot initiative, and are you favoring any one of them or not? David?
Well, I think the projects, there's a couple projects that I'm for. The Bloomington Ice Garden obviously needs some work. We need a new senior center. There's no question about that. Creekside needs replacing. There's no doubt about it. But I'm opposed to the way the city's going about it. First of all, they want us to pass the tax increase first before they even talk about how the operations are going to occur or what the project's going to look like. So it's almost like we have to, pass it first and then figure out what it's going to be all about after that. And I think that's just a lack of transparency with the public. The second thing is, I think a sales tax that's supposedly paid for by out-of-towners gives a license to spend way more money than we should be spending. There's more economic ways to do these projects, and any hiccup in those out-of-towners coming to town, where do you think that bill's going to go? It's going to go right back onto property taxes. And the final thing is that with these spending that we're doing solely on the backs of taxpayers, whether it's sales tax or property taxes to pay for the operations deficits in the future, we should be going to other sources of revenue. We should be giving naming rights to companies or to families. Right here at City Hall, there's Schneider Arts Center here. The Schneider family gave $1 million when this facility was being built, and now the facility, the Arts Center, is named after them. We should be doing the same thing for maybe Bloomington Ice Garden or for the community center. We should be going to corporations and family foundations in town and asking them to help pitch in if it's a truly regional need, a regional asset. So there's other ways to get funding for these projects before we go to the taxpayer, and we haven't done that. We're going straight to the taxpayer, and we're not being transparent with the taxpayer about what it's going to look like after these structures are built. And so, and as far as the third project, the 9 Mile Creek, they're going to have to destroy 9 Mile Creek in order to rebuild it the way that they're talking about. They're going to have to get rid of hundreds of trees. They're going to have to widen the trails. They're going to have to put down asphalt for bike paths. It's going to completely change the experience that people have today. And I don't think that's what people really want. And so I think we need to slow down, really take a look. This is not the time to be raising taxes like this. On top of the 9.5% property tax increase that the city wants to put on us next year, it's just too much all at once. And there's a lot of people in Bloomington, they're not going to be able to afford it.
You mentioned transparency, and do you think the public are really aware of what's happening with the creek and what may be involved in fixing this up?
No, I think that it's being sold in a certain way, obviously, to advance these projects in the way that the city wants. I don't think that it's truly, the full story is being truly put out there. And people are starting to put two and two together, and they're starting to realize, wait a minute, if you're going to spend $20 million on 9 Mile Creek,
Yes.
you're basically going to remake it. You're going to remake it with retaining walls and asphalt and cutting down trees and getting rid of the canopy in the way that exists today. Instead, we should be looking at sprucing it up, cleaning up the areas that need to be fixed up for far less cost, but maintaining its original character. Why are we talking about remaking it into something that it's not today? We're going to destroy what people value, and one of the reasons people move here are for assets like 9 Mile Creek. It's one of our greatest assets. And so we need to really protect that, or once we lose it, we'll never get it back.
I agree. Okay. Bruce, your thoughts too on the ballot initiatives?
Well, number one, this whole thing about sales tax and other people paying for it, that's a canard. Okay, they talk about 66% of it will be paid by people outside of Bloomington. Well, those other people are from other communities like Edina and the ones that have already raised the sales tax to get local taxes in. So it's like a tit for tat. You know, you're balancing one community against another. So when you lead the way with a 9.5%, with a 0.5% lead, they're just going to follow up, because why would they want to be paying our tax without us paying their taxes? So the 66% has to be questioned, and every one of those projects that they're talking about needs to be questioned in terms of what is the real cost, most economic way to achieve what we need to achieve for the seniors, for the Bloomington Ice Garden, and this 9 Mile Creek. I heard them talk a lot about how we have to be green and we have to address the global climate problems with CO2. What better way to do it than to keep the forage and why not have a tree planting program? Let's increase the canopy. Let's not tear it down. Let's keep things more natural. So every one of these things with Bloomington Ice Garden, they have a problem with the refrigerant. So let's look at what it costs. Let's look at the minimum costs. They don't take their foot off the gas ever. And the citizens of Bloomington are actually saying, we're not keeping up as well as we'd like to as far as our taxes. Now I can die many different ways and handle it, but being taxed to death, forget about it.
Forget about it. Yeah, because it doesn't seem to stop, does it?
No,
Yeah.
and it won't.
Jonathan, your thoughts on the tax increase and the ballot initiatives in front of us?
Sure. Well, I have a lot more probably insight on this because I'm currently on the park board. So on the park board, those three projects fall under the Bloomington Park Board. So Big Ice Garden, I actually skated there when I was a kid growing up. I have a soft spot for it. It does need some work. I think we need to do it the right way. That's probably my most favorable section that I'm in favor of. Creekside has been here a long time. It was built in the 60s. It is worn down and it needs some work. My question about that is how it's going to be built and how we're going to fit 3 gymnasiums in there, an indoor pool, an indoor playground, a walking track. We're also going to merge public health into that building, and they want to have outside spaces as well. That's a whole lot of stuff in a small footprint on that property. So I'm concerned about how we're going to make that all fit, and I don't want to see this come up in 10 years or 20 years and say, you know what, we've got to do it again. So we've really got to do it the right way. The other question about that is, where is everyone going to park for this vast building with all these amenities? Where is everybody going to park? I think that's another concern with that. When you look at the 9 Mile Creek corridor, my family goes to that park all the time. We enjoy that park, and I've enjoyed that park my whole life. It's a honey hole for Bloomington. People love Moyer Park. You have people on the other side that say, hey, we've got to look at global warming and climate change and CO2s and emissions. Well, if you go into that park with all this equipment, you're going against everything that you've said that you didn't want to have happen. So you can't have it both ways. For me, I like the park the way it is. I think there's a minimal amount of work that needs to be done there, but I don't think we need to do paved trails all the way down to the river. When they did it the last time, they did a paved trail system from Lindale to Cedar. That project originally came in at $2 million, and when it was all said and done, it was doubled to $4 million.
Oh boy.
So, like all the other candidates have said, we're spending a lot of money, and where does it stop? And if we need more money, the city will just go get it from another source. So these projects could be bigger than what they actually are.
Exactly.
Well,
They don't have any limits on how much money they can pull in through taxes.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. So I hear differences of opinion, and I recognize that there are needs out there. When we're talking about $100 million that are going into the wellness center, doesn't that seem like a lot of money? That's 1/10 of $1 billion. That's a lot of money. Can something be done that's more effective or more efficient? All there are alternatives. What's your thoughts on that?
It's more than the city's budget for the entire year for everything is about $85 million. We're talking about that structure, one of these projects being in excess of the entire city budget for an entire year,
Wow.
including all fire, police, safety, communications, administration, you name it. From soup to nuts, it's about $85 million budget, and they're talking about $100 million. The other thing is, who's to guarantee it'll actually be $100 million? It could be 125, it could be 150, just like Bruce said. And so, you know, there's the 101 million is what the number is, 101 million. That's what it is today. But what if in a couple of years, building costs go up, labor costs, insurance, all these different things continue to go up? There is no limit. And that's before we even talk about how much it costs to operate it every year, which again, is not gonna, we're not gonna know any of that until after we pass the funding for the construction.
Okay, thank you. Now we're talking about some of the things we're reacting to. Give me an idea what things that you're hopeful for, that you'd like to bring to the table, you'd like to bring to the citizens of Bloomington, that would improve this city in a way that just is very exciting for you. Jonathan, is there something that stands out for you?
I think the parks are one of our greatest assets in the city, and I think we've got to really keep those green spaces. For me, I don't want to get rid of any of our green spaces. There's talks about getting rid of Highland Golf Course. If we get rid of Highland Golf Course, the city's probably going to sell it and put in apartments. I want to keep our green spaces. We're doing currently a lot of work in our parks, and there's some great parks. We've got a mountain bike skills course going over at Tretbow. That's going to be great. So I'm really excited about keeping our parks going and our green spaces, because I think that's one of the perks to being a Bloomington resident.
Beautiful. Bruce?
well, I myself, I would like to actually make the business community a little bit more vibrant in Bloomington. We've made some decisions. We are on the backs of business. We're nitpicking at them every day. Government is involved in so many aspects of it. Like businesses can't have signs out to promote their sales for more than 2 weeks for the whole year. Well, does it bother us for them to have a sign out for 4 weeks? Let's just try to make it more commodious. They close the DMV. So now all the car dealers and so forth, they're actually sending their money out to like Richfield, who are providing delivery services to gather up all their certificates and so forth. So that's one half of it. But the other half of it is that I would really like to see well, first of all, revamping of the budget and how we do the budget. Let's bring some modern budget techniques in. But on this issue that we're talking about with the business community, I would like to really implement a very good hands-on training program for the kids that are in schools. I'll just tell you a little personal story if I can squeeze it in here. You know, I quit school in high school. I dropped out of high school. I went into the Navy when I was 17 years old. I pictured myself standing on a ship, you know, wind blowing in my hair. They said, "You're kind of smart. You're going to go to school." I said, "I got out of there just so I wouldn't have to go to school." So I go into the electronics technician school, 8 o'clock in the morning. 10 o'clock in the morning, my life had changed entirely. it was a subject. Oh, this is what learning is all about. Fun stuff. I was the best electronics technician they had, and when I got out, I went and got my double E and bachelor's degree, my master's, and went on and studied with a PhD at the University of Minnesota. You don't have to all go to college. I mean, work is what Jonathan. The reason he's dressed like this tonight because he just came from work. He came here to talk to the people, right?
Right.
And he came from work. Work is wonderful. Kids need to know how to work, and they need to be prideful in what they do because it leads to education. It leads to higher things. I'd like to see an apprentice program that achieves that.
Thank you. Excellent. David, what do you think about the future and the hope you want to bring to the city?
Well, I think Bloomington can be the crown jewel of the Midwest, an island of prosperity in a sea of mediocrity around us. And that is exactly where I want to lead this city, is to where Bloomington will be the bright, shining North Star in terms of business, where businesses seek us out to relocate here, where we have new startups, we have new technologies, whether it's hydrogen, electric vehicles, green tech, whatever you can imagine, coming to our city because we're such a vibrant place to do business. The second thing I want to do is I have a reforestation project to plant 5,000 trees in Bloomington. Bloomington has lost a ton of trees, thousands of trees due to ash borer, Dutch elm, storms. Just today I had a company come out and give me a quote to trim branches on this huge 100-year-old tree in my backyard. And the lady that was giving the quote there for trimming the tree and such, she said, well, we can trim your tree, but sometime in the next 5 to 10 years, you're gonna have to take this tree down because it's gonna get old and it's gonna crush under its own weight, and it could run the risk of falling on your house. There's thousands of trees in that situation in Bloomington. So a reforestation project at no taxpayer expense, because we'll go to Nature Conservancy, we'll go to other groups that specialize in this type of thing, that have a heart for nature, and I will ask those organizations and individuals for donations of those trees to plant in Bloomington. So 5,000 trees is the number that we're going to plant in Bloomington.
Great, nice, thank you. So one of the things the voters, I think, always want to know is transparency. Both in the council, mayor's office, is there some things you'd like to change or see or you do different to bring transparency into government here in Bloomington?
Well, I mean, I give you an example of how we're not having transparency here in Bloomington, and there's several ways where there's not enough transparency. One of those is that the comments on Facebook have been shut off for the past 6 months. The city does not want to hear from residents. They think that anybody that disagrees with them on Facebook is out of line, is not going along with their agenda, is engaging in vitriol. And so they've literally shut off the voice of the people on Facebook, on the city's Facebook page. So if you go to the City of Bloomington's Facebook page today, you cannot comment on any post that they put. You can like it, you can share it, but you can't comment on it like you used to be. That's a lack of transparency, and that's indicative of their attitude, almost an antagonistic attitude towards the public. And so what I would do is I would say, you know what? People are welcome to comment, even if the city doesn't like what they have to say. The people have the right to say it.
Yes.
And so that should be the attitude. The city workers, and specifically the leadership, not the rank and file, are great. What I'm talking about is the leadership has this attitude of almost of superiority, and that they have an agenda. They're following the tune of the Met Council or the state of Minnesota, and it's almost like when the people raise their voice or objections to what's going on or what the plans are, the city wants to ignore them or quiet them or shame them or silence them, and that is just wrong.
That's wrong.
That is exactly what our founders warned us about when we started this republic over 200 years ago, is that we should always keep people in authority in check. We should always be skeptical. We should always question what they're doing, and we should have the right to voice our opinions. And when we don't, then we need to take control back, and that's what we're doing by running for office, is people rising up and saying, we're going to take our government back and make it better.
Thank you. Bruce?
Well, I'm an engineer by nature, so I ran a research and technology group that had 8 meteorologists working for me, so I know a little bit about global warming. I know a lot about many, many different things, and I bring that experience to this job. But I think that the The reason I bring that up is because one of the most important values to me is truth. When you talk about transparency, transparency is really truth. Whether it's truth in science to drive policy, which is not what, that's not what happens. We are all subordinate to the truth. But if you make up the truth and you don't let people talk, like if David and I disagree or Jonathan and I disagree, I know that I have people on both sides of me that will listen to what I say and I'll listen to what they'll say, and together we'll come to the common best path. And that's why I'm very hopeful that we can make a change. You know, just listen to people talk. Transparency is seeking the truth together, not silencing people, locking them off of Facebook, censoring people, calling people names, you know, climate denier.
Right.
These are all problems that we have at the national level, but guess what? The principles are the same in Bloomington.
Yes, they are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jonathan, your thoughts?
I think all the other candidates were on the same page with a lot of these things. And the one area that I'd like to see changed personally, if we get elected, we need to be able to hear the people of Bloomington and listen to their voices. Currently, you can't, they've closed the public forum in the city council. You have to go do a listening session first, which isn't videotaped, it's recorded. Every other city out there has a public forum where if you want to have your voice heard, you can go before the city and you get that opportunity. I think that opportunity is missing here, and I think we're silencing the residents. Some people might say they don't want to stand up in that position to be able to, you know, they might be nervous, they might be scared. That's the opportunity for you to talk to, if you elect us, to us, and voice your concerns, and we will hear you. And the other part about that too is that's televised, that's taped. So other residents, even if they can't make it to that forum, they can see it online. And I think that's a huge part we're missing now, is we need to bring that back and do what every other city is doing. Just like the Facebook comments. Every other city you can comment on their Facebook groups. Gotcha. We need to be able to have that transparency by letting the voices be heard.
Well, thank you, and that's a wonderful way to end. Have our voices be heard. David, tell us how the voters can contact you.
Very simple. I've got a website that's easy to remember. It's just davidclarkformayor.io. davidclarkformayor.io.
Is that F-O-R or the number 4?
It's F-O-R, davidclarkformayor.io. And if somebody wants to email, it's info@davidclarkformayor.io.
Thank you. Bruce?
Colton for Council, F-O-R, coltonforcouncil.com. And I've got all my positions and all my initiatives that I would like to pursue on there. You can look at each one of them.
Thank you. And Jonathan, how can the voters contact you?
I went a little different route. It's Minks, number 4, citycouncil.com. So it's Minks, the number 4, citycouncil.com. I also have a Facebook page, Instagram, and Twitter account. And you can email me as well at minks4citycouncil@gmail.com.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate you having us.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Scott.
Thank you for joining us tonight at the Republican Roundtable. As we know, early voting has started, but you can go to the city itself, right at City Hall, on October 21st. You can take your vote and you can actually submit it right there and watch it being recorded. Please do that, and as citizens, it's helpful that we all participate in keeping our republic healthy. Thank you for joining us tonight at the Republican Roundtable.